Please welcome Sarah Quinlan, Senior Vice President and Group Head, Market Insights, MasterCard Advisors.
Good morning. I'm really glad it's cold in here because that's really good for apparel sales. Okay, so moving on. I have lawyers. They made me show you this. Done. I want to talk about the economy today, all right? And the most important thing is you'll say, okay, the data geek came back. But I came back because I think it's really critical, because this consumer continues to evolve, and I want you to get ahead of her. And I say her because 75% of shopping is done by women, and the men in the room know that we influence the other 25%. Okay, so the key thing that everybody's been questioning is whether we're actually spending the gasoline dividend. And we are. We're spending about 72 cents of it. Now, obviously, the price of gasoline is not going down anymore. It sort of fluctuates up and down. But the key thing is this has given the consumer a huge bonus. Now, remember, the consumer is 70% of GDP in the United States. This is what drives our economy. Make no mistake, exports are only 15%. So this is what we need to see to understand the strength of what's going on in this economy. So the key thing is this staying low is the benefit, and it's getting spent. So moving on. The economy, I'm saying that things are good. I'm going to tell you things are really good, but you look at this and you go, well, that looks like really horrid, right? Well, no, this is the economy. This is retail spending if I take out gasoline sales. Gasoline sales are 12% of the total retail economy, and they're actually depressing total retail sales. So look at the growth here. Disregard August. August, what did it not have? It had one less Saturday for shopping. What's happened post the recession? 2 people in a family are working. Saturdays are big. You take a Saturday out of the equation, it will affect total retail sales. So the important thing always is to make certain we're comparing apples to apples here. And that's the key thing. But you see this consistent, steady growth and spending of the consumer. So it's up 4.8%. And I think this is a huge positive. But this shows you the disparity. So really, really take advantage of understanding that point in gasoline spending. But now let's look at this. This is what's really the big challenge. The US consumer is shopping small post the recession. What does that mean? Well, it means she's back. It means she has money. You don't actually, am I working? There we go. You don't actually see that type of spending if she's not getting discounts, right? We were talking about discounts. No, you get no discounts at the small business. This is businesses with sales of 50 million or less. And they have been growing between 3 and 5% greater than total retail sales every single month for the last 20 months. Think about that, right? So it's saying I don't need a discount to shop, but it's also saying one more thing. Exactly what we just heard, unique. I need unique buying experiences that make me different from everybody else. And more than that, I'm willing to pay for it. So please, I'm going to beg you what I begged last year. I'm not going to spur her to spend. What is spurring her to spend is you create something special and unique. All right, let's look around the country. Strongest area in the country is the Southeast. What's going on in the Southeast? Well, old people like me are retiring there, okay? So that's the key thing to appreciate. The baby boomers are starting to retire. They're moving to the Southeast. But who's moving down there as well? Well, a lot of people don't realize we're a manufacturing economy again as well, and we manufacture cars. We're going to actually sell about 18 million cars this year, of which the majority will be manufactured in the Southeast down there. So little hint, if those of you who do have stores down there, think about running a promotion at the end of January. They will be bonused this year, and that money will go directly into the economy at the end of January to be spent then. Now, Northeast, we are overstored. There's no comment I can make other than that, more strongly than that. This is literally the 10th consecutive month of negative spending. 2 major headwinds. One, of course, the strength of the US dollar. By the way, it's not that the dollar is strong. We've had a strong dollar before. It was the acceleration and the speed that the dollar grew in disparity with other currencies. That's the most important thing. So we've seen a drop in tourism spending. Secondly, most importantly, is in my old world, many of you know that I worked on Wall Street for 28 years, there are about 250,000 people employed less than before the recession in both Boston, which of course is asset management, and New York, which is trading and asset management. And it's just because we're more efficient. And so from that perspective, those jobs don't necessarily come back. And if they come back, not at the same level of compensation. So we see that spending down. So from my perspective, we are overstored there. So what are we spending on? Look at the number one category, restaurants. It's all about the experience, right? That is the key thing to appreciate. So that has been growing consecutively every month. This is the highest restaurant spending we've ever seen in our history of spending Pulsar report. Second, furniture. So while the housing recovery is over, you saw new home sales this week and the like, we aren't actually buying homes. What we are doing is we're out of the recession, so we're making durable goods purchases. That's big ticket items, folks. That means we can spend more at your store as well. So understanding this is it, and by the way, this is millennials are over indexing here. Remember we keep saying they have no money? This is one of the places they're spending a lot of their money. So this is an important thing. Grocery had a lift, frankly, only because of Labor Day. It's basically been flat most of the year, but this was a lift. Clearly, there's two things I'll call out here on the negative side. Department stores, that's basically 14 months in a row negative. So clearly, it's a channel that is challenged in terms of the consumer wanting to go there. What I would call you out here, the insight to understand, is because two people are working, time is a big issue. So making certain the layout of your store is conducive because you're competing against specialty retailers in that space. And I can show the growth in every single one of the categories that a department store sells, but not necessarily within that department store. So understanding that is critical. Final thing I want to mention. All right, luxury. Now, we had a hard comp a year ago, but make no mistake about it, the most important distinction here in luxury, we lost the non-US consumer almost at the beginning of this year in luxury spending, but in August and September, because of the volatility of the equity markets, we lost the US consumer in the space as well. So it's very much challenged there. And then the final thing mention, look at electronics not being driven by back to school. Very important to also realize. We are also at somewhat of a point where a lot of people think they're losing apparel sales to electronics. It is not the case. All right, moving on, durable goods. I wasn't joking about the furniture spending. So I want you to see the strength of this and understand that this is, again, a lifestyle choice because people use this as part of the experience. All right, so post the recession, it's all about how do I experience things, what do I do? And that is also part of our homes and what we're thinking. But remember, we live closer to cities and closer to where we work than before. We no longer are willing to commute. So that is a critical thing to the placement of your stores and understanding the furniture maybe not as big as before is also an important distinction. But look at the small business, even bigger. Again, I'm going to hammer this point home a little bit, but I want you to really appreciate the uniqueness of what people are looking for, and they're willing to spend more and over-index there. All right, so experiential spending. Obviously, sales up there. We've literally seen the highest airline sales ever in our history. Now, I'm convinced we will have the stupidest children going forward because they're all flying with me every day. So who's going to school? I'm just curious. But that being said, it also, you see the lodging numbers. Now, I come from Boston, and so it's leaf peeping season. And the average price of a hotel room in Boston right now is $800, and it's full. So I want you to appreciate that, again, this is the shift of the income. So the money is back. So this economy not being back is just a falsehood. It's just a question that we're spending it very differently than before. But look at this. I told you, we don't cook either. So the kids aren't in school and they're not learning to cook. And this is the key thing to appreciate. Again, it's all about the experience and it's about thinking about people's time. So one of the things to think about if you are in the business of selling groceries or that era, is you think about the fact that how do I move the deli to the front? How do I move that experience and create that so the person can be almost ready to table? Because this is what she's saying to you. She's saying, like, I'm not really going to cook. I'm going to pick the kids up after school. I'm going to go home and go out with my family first, and then we'll go home and do homework. So it's a big shift in the consumer spend. So let's look at apparel. Not so pretty. Right? So appreciate there was no back to school lift, but also appreciate the brown line that you see there. That's the line that's the price index that shows the discounting. So the key thing I'm trying to share with you is increased discounting is not spurring sales. So maybe there's another way to think about your merchandise strategy to actually sell more. The key, that is a very important thing to appreciate. But look at the small business specialty apparel. So again, they're taking share. So again, they're wanting, this consumer's again voting with her dollars and saying that make me look different, make me be, I'm wearing a black dress, I'm not different today. But this is a key thing to appreciate, that thinking of in that vein is exactly where you see the lift in the spending. So I broke this down by income. It's a little bit of an eye chart, but I think the thing that you should appreciate here is that the mass affluent is the group to go after. Everybody always wants to go after the affluent or the great discounting, and I'm telling you the mass affluent continue to spend on a continual basis, and they are back, and that's where we continue to see that type of spend. And that's the person that's not the full luxury spender, because they're choosing to dip in and out of the market when they want to. And this is a consumer that has to spend on a continual basis, and does. And then I thought we'd throw millennials in there. Again, we always throw them under the bus. My little 24-year-old cost center, I throw her under the bus a lot. But that being said, I love her to death. But it's like, Mom, let's have lunch. That means OPM, other people's money. I'm taking her shopping. We know these things, right? But the reality is they are spending. But this is the case where I want you to think twice, and you have two marketing strategies. You market to her, because she is over-indexing on clothes right now and shopping. But you also market to me for her. Because for some reason, when I graduated from school, my mom threw me out and said, great, go get a job, I'll see you at Christmas, all right? Somehow we feel sorry for these children, and we buy for them all the time. So I want you to market to me for her, because I still do buy for her. So that's the key thing. You have to bifurcate your marketing strategy when you talk about millennials, but they are definitely driving it. Women are really the ones that are hurting the apparel. So I appreciate what Kevin's saying. This is the important thing. Women are not buying clothes right now. So thinking about being more creative in your design, different ways, thinking about what they want to wear. I was on a plane yesterday, as I usually am every day, and every woman got on in yoga pants, all right? Every single woman, all right, except for me. I was wearing my dress because I was racing for the plane. But that being said, what it's saying is the woman wants you to design something that maybe looks a little more chic than yoga pants, but something comfortable for the plane if we're going to sit for 6 hours. So thinking about exactly what her lifestyle is critical to getting her to actually spend. I told you, she's not really spending, all right? So it's really challenging to get women's apparel up here. This is not the category where they're going. So who's buying apparel? Well, in this case, men have actually been indexing until the second quarter of this year. So we actually saw a real change in terms of that, but they've actually started to grow. So this is really the appeal where I think the design for men and understanding, but I do understand that it's still the woman buying for the men in the majority of cases. It's true. Family apparel's had a bit better growth. All right, so if we just look at that sector, so there's, again, people very much looking at focused stores. So even though a lot of people sell this in their stores, people are looking at very unique ways of how they're shopping for it. But look at the small business here. Again, this is really looking at regionalization as well and thinking about it, all right? Because remember, again, these are stores with 50 million or sales or less, and they're really showing the growth. And that's a very big difference in what we've seen in the past. Children's apparel drove nothing, no back to school in this way. So they went to the family apparel stores where people could do it. Why? Time, guys. I don't have time to go to 17 stores. And that is the thing to really appreciate. We've really cut down the number of stores that we shop at post the recession. So that brand loyalty and understanding your consumer and much more segmentation than you've ever done in your life is so critical to your success as you're going forward here. Not so hot in this space, okay? So this is teen apparel. And I think this is the real shift. There's one category that really has taken it on the chin post the recession, it's this. We love our teenage children, we're just not willing to spend on them this way. And so there's been a real distinction here where there's a price point, knowing they're still growing, they're still outgrowing things, their tastes change constantly, that we're not willing to invest in them. So this segment has not caught along, and as you can see, despite the discounting, there's really been very little lift in the sales there. So I broke out the sort of by age here a little bit to see a little bit of distinction here, so you can see that there's different segments, and you really got to break them down to this level. And we could break it out regionally, we could do this. But I want you to see that category. If you look at the two here, you can see, all right, here's the sales. Whoops, I didn't go backward. It was supposed to go backward. There we go. There we go. See, you see the growth, right? But you don't see the e-commerce growth. We're going to talk about e-commerce in a second, but I, for one, am not sold on this, okay? Let's be really honest. We still see the majority of shopping in stores. There's huge investment going into this space. The key thing that I want to see on your mobile devices and on your websites is for you to curate the experience of your brand for me. That is the most important thing. Whether I choose to execute there or not is beside the point. The real issue is understanding how and what is going to make me buy in the first place. I'll figure out how I want to do it. All right, footwear, again, not really much of a back-to-school lift, has been declining. Again, the timing of when we do things, right? We really basically buy our apparel and footwear twice a year now. We didn't get enough cold weather lately, so now we'll do it most likely at the end of October into November is where we'll see the lift here for the winter. And then again, we'll see it because of global warming or climate change or whatever we're going to call it, we'll see it more drift into May than from April where we used to see it. All right, department stores. Not a pretty picture and very difficult to sort of see. And obviously we had an early Easter shift so that we sort of see the distinction there. So clearly it's been a very challenged sector. I really think about this as a time issue, as I mentioned, and I think also it's a layout issue, all right? Because we still know, for example, that women's apparel sells more than men's, but why is men's apparel always on the first floor? And I've told you she has no time, and you're making her have to look through the store to find what she wants for herself. And so think about the layout. It's very critical here. And the millennials really don't like them. So if you're thinking about the store for the future and understanding our future consumer here, she's not choosing to shop in this place at all. So the millennials have not transferred our love as baby boomers who did love the department stores into this. So getting her back in there is going to be a critical challenge for this segment. High-end department stores have dropped off. As I told you, the consumer, U.S. consumer and luxury dropped off the last 2 months. You can obviously see the same thing here in the high-end department stores. So they were holding more of their value versus lower and moderate department stores. But clearly, a lot of that has been abandoned here as we've reached a much more difficult place for this luxury sector. Moderate department stores, definitely much more challenged here. And that has been a bigger issue. Now, and then jewelry. So this is my favorite category in the entire world. I do not consider this discretionary. I want to be very clear about this. So I don't understand why anybody would, but they tell me it is. But that being said, I think the interesting thing is we've only seen a bit of weakness at the high end, all right? But basically, jewelry has been the one early category that recovered quickly from the recession. So we've actually seen basically, with the exception of these couple last months, we had seen about, prior to this negative month, we saw 27 months in a row of growth in this space. But again, jewelry creates a permanent experience for someone. It creates a memory. You remember where you bought it. The watch I'm wearing was the watch I bought with my very first paycheck 30 years ago. So I still love it. I still wear it. Still got memories. And that's the point of what jewelry does. So I encourage you to think about where this has a place in your store because it's something that we consistently see people buying. Average purchase price, $2,300, just so you know. Keep going, men. You can get up there. All right. The other thing I wanted to mention here is this is interesting, all right? So we don't have the millennials in this space yet. So this is the one area where they're lagging. They're over-indexing on a lot of things, but they aren't there yet. So this is one where it doesn't seem, we'll see if they start to develop a love for it. But they've over-indexing in certain other things. But I'll tell you one thing they over-index in is travel. They don't miss that one whatsoever, right? This is luxury. Really challenged, guys. So this is the point where I keep saying to people, go for that, mass client. She's out there shopping all the time. So everyone's trying to go for this really rarefied sector. But this person, maybe they're rich because they don't spend. But all I can say, is that clearly they're holding back right now because they're seeing some volatility. There's obviously, a global economic slowdown going on with the exception of our country and the United Kingdom. So from that perspective, this is something that we're seeing going on here in the space. So e-commerce, I'm gonna rush right through here. It's really not growing that well. It's 6.3% of total retail sales. That's it, folks, okay? It's growing at single digits now. It's not even at double-digit growth. think carefully about your investment in the space. It's not to say you don't have to be here, but I don't need something within 2 hours unless the airlines loses my luggage. So understanding this issue of spending billions in the space when most people, like myself, are not home during the day, we necessarily can't deliver everything to our offices, so it becomes a real more important to reach the consumer via your online channel, but not necessarily always having to execute there. Again, just quickly to show, with all the investments of billions of dollars being spent here, it's 16% of department store sales, it's 24% of apparel. The only sector where it really makes sense is a commodity sector like electronics. And then just a couple quick things I wanted to show. One of the things that's very important, we talked about segmentation. We create propensity models where you can reach an audience and it gets a much higher return on your advertising campaign. That's the key thing of what data is. Data is to use you to make a smarter decision and reach someone. Everyone has marketing dollars, you have to spend them. Next thing is we created a FICO score for where you put your store. Because obviously you want to understand what's the highest spend, but the highest spend in your category and the frequency of that spend and who is spending there. So we created a score around that. And then finally, the big thing we did was also understand that everyone needed a dashboard to understand for their actual individual store what happened away from them. And that's the big thing that we did with local market intelligence. And we, of course, know that's priceless, right? So the point, and I'll wrap it up real quickly here, and then if there's a question or two, we'll do it. But the real point here is, look, the economy is really good, guys. It's not just okay. It's very, very good. The key is to get that consumer shopping with you. So create her an experience. Think about partnering. You saw the restaurant spend. Think about partnering with restaurants, bringing in chefs. We have a partnership with Marcus Samuelson at the Red Rooster. Bring him around to all of our events and create things with him. It brings people in. It's one of the things that marries your brand in another way, and you're thinking outside the box of how she normally actually spends. And I promise you that's the key thing, because she's out there. She wants to spend with you. She just maybe doesn't A, know who you are, or B, what you've done for her to create a really special experience. Thank you.
Sarah, thank you so much. So we have a very scientific, unscientific poll that we conducted about the holiday shopping season, and we asked, a few questions. The first one, you bring it up here. So do you anticipate sales growth this holiday season? And yes, we have some growth anticipated.
Good. Good answer.
Good answer. Right answer. And then we ask, a percentage. If it's up or down, which way is it going to go? So the next slide, we have. Survey says.
There we go.
If yes, how much of an increase? And we have the largest bulk is expecting about a 3%.
You're low. We're at 3.8, guys. So we expect it'll be up 3.8. And I think it actually could even exceed that. I think people are feeling better than you think. And remember, we've also had the best October month of the stock market, which will get people psychologically feeling healthier again. It's all about mentality. But go out there positive. Make people appreciate. But it's not about early. And remember, by the way, the #1 day last holiday season was not Black Friday. It was the Saturday. You have all 4 days to think about this, all right? So last year we were actually up on Thanksgiving. We were actually down year over year on Black Friday. We were up on Saturday and down slightly for about a 1% increase for the 4 days of the weekend. So appreciate that. And then you're going to get a lull for the first 2 weeks of December, which is where we actually see the e-commerce pick up, just because we don't trust that you'll deliver it to us by Christmas if we don't shop early. And then you'll see the last thing. And by the way, jewelry, we know men, you wait till the last day before Christmas.
And then I think we asked if there was a decrease expected. What was the next slide? So here we have
you guys are depressing
flat
me.
It's tied flat and then -1. So that's a little. Is it pessimism?
I will tell you that it will be negative. We are projecting negative for department stores year over year. So we are not expecting a lift there. But we do not expect overall a decrease in any other categories of any major note.
All right, and I have a question from the iPads. Asking you to look forward then to and into the crystal ball, and what are we going to get for the holiday season from a spending perspective?
Well, I think the thing to think about is we are expecting ridiculous travel, all right? So we are going to grandmother's house, right? So we will see a real lift of this. So one of the things I want you to think about is destination shopping. We see people now do regular shopping on their vacations. So, and remember, only 40% of Americans have a passport, and most of them, of that, about 17% have only been to the Caribbean or Mexico. So appreciate that the spending when people travel is done here in the United States, so you can get a lift, and people go on their vacation and buy regular things that they would buy in their regular stores. So appreciate and understand that your consumer might be in different places over the holiday. So we're expecting a big lift there of that. Obviously, no joke to you, the restaurants will be up, but I think the big thing will be is that the more people can create very unique products and try to think about when you're showing this, curate for people. Again, they will not have much time to shop. They don't have much time, and they're not going to make a lot of time for it. So make certain you've curated as much as possible, and you will get a good lift.
Sarah?
Oh, yep, there we go.
You opened up the presentation speaking about the consumable dollars increasing because of the decrease in the gas prices.
Yes.
But the statistics I've seen is they've been neutralized because of the Obamacare taxes that really took away all the savings. Can you comment on that?
Gilbert, you're going to always get me in trouble. No, is the simple answer, all right? The fact is there is more spending year over year that we have seen in every sector, and obviously I do see healthcare spending as well. And so that is not the case. So we actually do see an increase. The big thing is that the small business is stealing it. All right, and that's really the issue. And if you think about it, when the Commerce Department does their survey, they survey 50,000 businesses, of which 30,000 report in. We get every retailer in America from the smallest to the largest. So we're able to get a much more accurate count, and we can see this surge in small business, which has really been taking share. So we know that there's actually not a decrease in spending at all, and it's not been neutralized. 72 cents is going in and being shopped for.
Thank you. That's all the time we have for questions.
Thank you.